powerful message about Iran and U.S. foreign policy that is too often absent from our media, and which we will all benefit from hearing this evening. Please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Scott Ritter. He has...
Testing, 1, 2, 3. I feel like a rock star right now. Got music in the background. It's awesome. Thank you very much for the kind words of introduction. You know, I've said it a lot. I'm sometimes uncomfortable up here. You know, I'm used to public speaking. I do it quite a bit. I prefer to do it in audiences where I'm comfortable, you know, like full of Marines, because then I get to do that Marine officer thing, and, you know, and talk to them like this and sternly, and they have to sit there and listen. Or with firefighters, I'm an instructor. I'm a firefighter in the state of New York, and I'm an instructor. So in a room of firefighters, you know, I'm comfortable because we're all sort of cut from the same piece of cloth. You heard that before. They're my brothers, they're my sisters. There's people that I'm ideologically aligned with. And then, gosh, I go out and I travel. I meet people like Lizzie West and Baba, and I'm here with you. And I'm not going to prejudge the audience. I don't know everybody's background, but I will venture to say that you probably come, the majority of you, from an approach that's a little bit different than my upbringing. Progressive might be a word that is used to describe people in this audience. Liberal, before it became a bad word, might be a word that's used. Anarchists, libertarians, peace activists, people who believe in social justice, etc. That's fantastic. If I were to use labels to describe myself, I would say conservative, military, and I'm not a pacifist. We're cut from different pieces of cloth, you and I. There could be no doubt about that. But as it was mentioned, it may be different cloth, but it's cloth that comes from the same origin. And this is a point that needs to be made. We might come from different approaches, different backgrounds, different walks of life, but we're here tonight because regardless of our differences, the labels that we attach to one another, we have one thing in common, the most important thing, that whether you're Democrat, you're Republican, you're progressive, you're conservative, or somewhere in the middle, red or blue, it don't matter. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we're all Americans. We're citizens of the United States of America, the greatest nation, and I don't mean the greatest nation in terms of that chest-thumping, chauvinistic, we're going to take over the world kind of thing. I mean the greatest nation from the standpoint of a collection of people who came together to represent something good. And this concept is embodied in a document called the Constitution of the United States of America. It's a document that I and many others have sworn an oath to uphold and defend against all enemies, foreign, but this is a part that people don't always pick up on, and domestic. You see, the Constitution of the United States of America can come under attack from any number of directions. And in this day and age, especially the post-9/11 era, where, you know, we're in the global war on terror, there's a tendency for people to view America as being attacked from without, from the outside. When the reality is, using the war on terror as an excuse, the greatest threat our nation has ever confronted comes not from a handful of terrorists hiding in a cave somewhere in the mountains between Afghanistan and Pakistan, but from those whom we elect to represent us in higher office today inside our own country. Our Constitution, our way of life, that which we stand for is under attack. And I, for one, am not going to put up with it anymore. And so that's sort of why I'm here. People say, why are you doing this? Why? I got my friends, dude, wake up, man. Why are you hanging out with those wackos out there on the left? I said, well, those wackos in the left are the only people now, they're the thin line of citizenship that stands between what America can be and what America is going to be if we don't rise up and defend who we are and what we are. The day that we roll over and simply say that a good citizen is a silent citizen is the day that we may have a flag that is the stars and stripes. We may say the Pledge of Allegiance. We may call America, America. But if we don't adhere to the values and ideals that are set forth in that document, the Constitution of the United States of America, we cease to function as America. And that is not a future I want, either for myself, my children, or, if we're blessed enough, their children. We need to stand up and come together and defend our country from all enemies. Foreign, yes, but most importantly, domestic, because today, in this day and age, that's where the number one threat to our country comes from, the threat from within. And we can no longer afford to label ourselves Republican, Democrat, liberal, or progressive. We have to come together as Americans, united by the ideals and values set forth in a document that says that we are a nation governed by the rule of law, where due process does matter. You see, the document that I refer to does not begin, I, the President of the United States of America. It doesn't begin, we, the Congress of the United States of America. The preamble of this document begins, we, the people of the United States of America, and we have an obligation to recognize what that means. You know, the Supreme Court of the United States of America has determined that because of that preamble, the way it is written, that document does not belong to the President or the Congress. That document belongs to we, the people of the United States of America. So when someone says, who's responsible for defending this great country? There is only one answer. Us. Us. It's our job. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here talking with you today. Because as a citizen of this country, it's incumbent upon me, upon you, on all of us together to defend that which we stand for. And it's a good thing. The Constitution is not a document that embodies imperialistic values. A perversion of the Constitution is manifested in the current national security strategy of the United States of America, embodies the concept of global empire. But the Constitution stands for basic human rights, civil liberties. It places value in the individual. It also speaks of the necessity of coming together as the collective, but it's a collective of individuals whose rights must be protected. And what we cannot allow to occur is what is occurring today, where we collectively allow ourselves to succumb to fear. Fear of the unknown, the global war on terror, those people, them, whatever. And we say that we must have security. We must be secure from that which we are afraid of. Therefore, we are willing to give up the liberty that defines America. So we sacrifice freedom. We sacrifice liberty in the name of security. Join the Marine Corps, go off to 29 Palms, California, and I'm doing the Marine thing, man. I'm loving it. We're trained to close with and destroy the enemy through firepower and maneuver. You know, I didn't go to Iran during that time, but I spent a lot of time planning to attack Iran. That was the time of the Iran-Iraq war. We're concerned about Iranian forces breaking through the Iraqi lines, doing the old left hook coming down Kuwait. So every morning I went to work with a sea bag full of my stuff, and I was an intelligence officer. I had to brief the general. Are the Iranians going to break through today? And so you're looking at all the secret information. I'm focused on that. And man, as a young Marine, I just begged the Iranians to break through. Please break through, please, because then we get to fly over there and I get to kill you. This is what I wanted to do. I'm a warrior. I want to go to war. Now, I say I'm a warrior. I'm a wannabe warrior, just like everybody else. I don't know the reality of war at this point in time. I know the theory of war. It's all glorious at this point in time. The flag's waving, the Marine Corps hymn's blaring, and I'm ready to go off and defend my country as wild-eyed as you get. When I went to Russia, not only could I not speak Russian, but I didn't know what a missile was. I mean, I roughly knew I could draw one out in crayon, but this is real missile stuff. 2 years later, I was the first inspector ever to set foot on Russian soil, by the way, so that's one of my honors. 2 years later, I'm introduced to a group at the CIA, about 120-odd intelligence officers, and I'm introduced as the foremost expert on road mobile intercontinental ballistic missiles in the United States of America. Now, ladies and gentlemen, be afraid. Be very afraid. All right? What made me an expert? Was I a rocket scientist? No. Was I an engineer? No. I just happened to be the first person to ever do something that no one else had ever done, and it didn't fall on my face. And so I became the expert, the go-to guy. And I'm not saying that I was bad. I'm just saying that, I know what I knew, and I can tell you that I wasn't ready to write a PhD thesis on this at any given time. I just basically survived and became an expert in the process. I was thankful when I left that job in the summer of 1990, and I got to go back to the Marine Corps, get back in my comfort zone. And up until then, I'd never been in combat. Suddenly, in August of 1990, Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait, and America finds itself preparing for war. And I'm in the middle of it. I get to do the old headquarters Marine Corps thing. I'm with the commandant. We're planning combat operations. And the stuff I'm doing apparently impressed people enough that they were going to send me straight to Saudi Arabia, hook me up with the lead Marine element to clear the minefields. I had done some analysis on minefield breaching and how we're going to do it. So they said, you're going to go with the tip of the spear. And we did the calculations on it. I had an 80% chance of getting killed. And I was happier than I've ever been in my entire life. You seen that movie, Forrest Gump? Lieutenant Dan? I get to die for my country. It was great. So off I go. They put me on an airplane. I land in Riyadh, and then the guy meets the plane with his clipboard. They're going down the names. Boom, 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 boom. They get, and then all the names are read off, and I'm still standing there. The guy goes, who are you? I said, who am I? I'm Captain Ritter. By name request to come here and personally win the war. They said, well, you're not on the list, man. I said, check it again. By name request, straight to the commandant, that's why I'm here. Captain, you're not on the list. Get on the bus, go find yourself a bunk, and in the morning we'll figure out what we're going to do with you. When the war started, Israel started getting hit by Iraqi missiles. And General Waller, General Schwarzkopf's deputy, walks in. They got a problem, you see, because Israel's getting ready to enter the fight. And we've got to somehow come up with a strategy to stop Israel, which means we have to have a strategy to get the Iraqi missiles. So he walks in and he goes, does anybody here know anything about missiles? And they'll go, yeah, Ritter's the foremost expert on road mobile intercontinental ballistic missiles. So I get pulled out. Long story short, I get assigned to Delta Force, the Navy SEALs, the Air Force, and we go off and we do our thing, and I get the war that I wanted. I will just tell you this, war sucks. War is the worst thing that mankind can do to mankind. Anybody who's ever been in combat will tell you that there's nothing good about it. You might be able to sit here and say, that I can justify my actions, but there's no way I will legitimize war. Having shot at and been shot at, there's nothing glorious about it. There's no thoughts of heroism going through while you're clawing at the dirt, peeing in your pants, trying to get a lower profile as you hear rounds cracking overhead, knowing that you got to muster the courage to stand up and assault that which is trying to kill you. And seeing what a bullet can do to a human body, it ain't what you see on TV. And we'll just leave it at that. I learned to hate war by going to war. When the phone rings, it's the United Nations. They say, we got a job. You see, at the end of the war, the international community decided that Iraq had to get rid of its weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons, etc. And they sent in inspection teams to do it. Now, the initial inspection teams were actually populated by real experts, guys that were biologists, chemists, nuclear physicists, rocket scientists doing their job. They all had really thin necks, really thin arms, pale white skin because they've never been outside of a laboratory, and they didn't know how to really talk to people. They'd sort of beep at them. Beep. Beep. And they went into Iraq to do their job, and they're pretty good, except the Iraqis weren't playing the game. You see, beep, the Iraqi goes, that's the sound effect, by the way, of a round being chambered into an AK-47 as the Iraqi guard points it at the inspector and says, "You're not welcome here." Beep. And that's how the inspections went initially. Not very good. So now they have to revamp the inspection process. And I get a phone call, and they say, "We want to invite you into this process. We need you to come in and come up with a new approach to weapons inspections." You see, we tried the gentleman way, we tried the expert way, and now they have to rely on what I was really trained at doing. See, I'm not an arms control specialist, really. I'm not a biologist, a chemist, a rocket scientist, a physicist. I'm a spy. I'm trained to acquire information in denied areas. Data that people don't want me to have, I get. I went to the CIA and reported that we were closing the books on the Iraqi missiles, that we could account for them all. The director of the CIA went to the Congress of the United States and said, "We think that there's 200 missiles left in Iraq." I went, "Wait a minute, I just told you there's none." He said, "No, there's 200. I said, "Well, how do you know that?" He said, "I can't tell you, it's secret." I said, "Wrong answer, Bubba. That dog don't hunt." I run the intelligence program for the international community. You're saying there's 200 missiles? You're going to have to tell me how you know this. So they gave me the information. Really special. It's buried in the ground, buried under rivers, buried in mountains, under lakes, buried. But then they made a mistake. They told me exactly where they thought they were buried. So I called their bluff. $12.5 million U.S. taxpayer money later, we had ground penetrating radar built just for us, put on helicopters. We took it to Iraq. We flew it all over Iraq. How many missiles do you think we found? None. Zero. Went back in '93, reported to the director of the CIA and said, "There are no missiles left in Iraq. We're back to our original assessment." Director of the CIA told me to leave the office. Called my boss and said, "Ritter's a clever little kid. We agree, there's not 200 missiles. There's 12 to 20, and that number will never change, no matter what you inspectors do." That's when we came face to face with the reality that the United States of America wasn't concerned about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction, that they had another agenda, and that agenda was removing Saddam Hussein from power. The weapons inspections were only useful insofar as they facilitated regime change, that the whole WMD thing was a fraud, a farce. The game was regime change. And that's one of the reasons why I resigned in 1998. I was called before the United States Senate. I was questioned by the senators, especially those Democrats who were concerned that my speaking out was hurting the Democratic President, Bill Clinton. Remember, long before George W. Bush lied to us about WMD in Iraq, Bill Clinton invented the lie about WMD in Iraq. This isn't a Democratic problem or a Republican problem, ladies and gentlemen. It's an American problem. So I get challenged by Joe Biden, who says, "Who are you to speak out? Don't you think you're operating above your pay grade?" Perhaps I didn't have stars on my shoulder. I used to have a little bronze oak leaf, major, but I wasn't a major. I was just there as the most important pay grade America's ever seen. You see, with all due respect to Joe Biden and the other senators who tried to denigrate my qualifications to speak out, not only was I a former weapons inspector, a chief weapons inspector who ran the intelligence programs, meaning that there wasn't anything the CIA knew that I didn't know. There wasn't anything the Mossad knew that I didn't know, because I spent a lot of time in Israel, spent a lot of time in Germany, in France, in England. I knew it all. But that's not what gave me the credibility to speak before the Senate. See, Joe Biden and others, you're just senators. I'm an American citizen, and that's the best pay grade anybody can ever give me. If we cared for our troops, we would mourn the day they were sent to war, and we would ensure, as citizens of the United States of America, that we did everything possible, short of war, to ensure that before we send these Americans off to fight and possibly die in our name, that it is a cause worthy of the sacrifice they are about to make. Support the troops, my ass. We don't support the troops, ladies and gentlemen. We disrespect the troops. We disrespect them every second. We remain mute about not only the illegal war that's being waged in Iraq, but the irresponsible conflict being waged in Afghanistan. And we condemn the troops, spit in their face as we collectively remain silent in the face of the potential of conflict with Iran. We don't support the troops. And we should at least be honest enough to say so and take those ridiculous yellow stickers off the back of the cars, because it is just living a lie as those stickers are out there. I hate these stickers with all my heart. I support the troops, but I do so with a little bit more than the meaningless symbology of a little yellow sticker on the back of my car. Now, some people will say, "Wow, you're a little bitter there, man." Yeah, I am. And, and there's a lot of blame out there. I mean, we're playing the blame game. And we all see it. Who do we blame? The President of the United States, George W. Bush. I do blame George W. Bush. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the deciderer. He's the one who sent the troops off. I blame George W. Bush for what's happening in Iraq and Afghanistan, the potential Iraq. I blame the Congress of the United States, because this is not a dictatorship. The Congress has a responsibility set forth by the Constitution, not only to be involved in declarations of war, but to carry out oversight of the executive. And this is not transpiring today. Congress has rolled over and played dead. So I blame the Congress. And then there's the ultimate boogeyman we all love to blame, the media. I blame the media. I blame CBS News, NBC News, ABC News, CNN, Fox. I blame them all. The New York Times, the Washington Post, they are all to blame because they packaged up these lies and they spoon-fed us. Blame the president, blame the Congress, blame the media, blame the media, blame the media. I hear it. You know what it reminds me of? You're probably going to think I've gone off my rocker at this point in time. It reminds me of springtime in New York. And you're going to sit there and go, "Dude, you have gone off the deep end." Why do I say spring? You live in Missouri. How cold do your winters get? Do they get cold here? Well, they get really cold up where I live in upstate New York, you see. When the winter comes in, the place freezes up and all the birds fly south. And then you sit there and you shiver as the winter goes on, and you wait, and springtime comes and the sun comes out and the miracle of life blooms before you. Grass grows, leaves come out, flowers, and the birds come back from their hiatus. And the birds are very, very productive little creatures. They fly around, they get twigs, they get branches, and they build nests, little homes in these trees. They build them right outside my office where I work at home. And then the miracle of life occurs. They lay eggs. And the mama bird sits on the eggs, and they hatch. And out from the little eggs come tiny little baby birds. And they're so beautiful. They sit there and they go, tweet, 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 tweet. And mama bird's sitting on the branch. She hears them tweeting. She flies off because she knows what they want. She goes, gets it. The little worms, the insects, she eats them, puts them in her gut. Then she flies back, and the little birds are going, tweet, tweet, tweet. Mama bird lands in, and she pukes down each one of their throat. And the little birds are so happy because they got exactly what they're asking for. And it reminds me of the American people when we turn on the television and we go, CBS Evening News, tweet, 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 and they puke down our throat. We get the New York Times, and we grab the New York Times and we read it, and we go, tweet, 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 and they puke down our throats. We're little birds, ladies and gentlemen. We get exactly what we want. We can blame the media all we want, but at the end of the day, it's our fault because we have allowed ourselves to be programmed as tiny little birds willing to receive puke with a smile on our face. We have to stop being little birds. We have to break the little bird syndrome. We have to become what I call citizen intelligence officers, hunter raptors of information. Now, I'll give you a little quick course on how to be a citizen intelligence officer. It's a 5-step program. That's 7 steps less than AA, so it's easy. It's really easy. We can break this addiction to bird puke. It's 5 easy steps. Step number 1, the most important step, ask the question. You see, when you grab the newspaper, look at the headline. Did you write that headline? Did you sit in on the editorial meeting that decided what that headline was going to be, what the lead story was going to be? No. So when you grab a newspaper, you're allowing others to define what it is you're going to receive. You're a little bird tweeting away, and they're puking away. You turn on the TV. Did you sit in on the production meeting and decide what the lead story was going to be? No. You see, you have to divorce yourself from this and ask the question, what do I want to know? What information do I need to have? I am now in charge is what you're saying. I am asking the question. Step 2, collect the information. Now you go and read that newspaper. Now you go and watch those TV shows. But you see, you've already said, I'm in charge, because you've reestablished the relationship. It's not them puking down your throat. It's you determining whether or not you're going to consume this information. You now have a choice. Step 3, I organize it. I organize it chronologically. I organize it by subject matter. I try and make sense out of it. It's just not a compilation of raw data. I sort of set it up into subsets. Step 4, I assess it. I digest it. I bring it in. I engage that supercomputer that resides between this earlobe and this earlobe, the most powerful supercomputer out there. And you know what happens as I do this assessment? I establish an independently formed point of view. The most powerful thing that we can ask for in a democratic society. A citizen empowered by knowledge and information. Not knowledge and information that was puked down their throat, but knowledge of information which they derived themselves as citizen intelligence officers. Do I have intelligence yet? Nope, there's one last step. Answer the question. Complete the circle. Ask the question, collect the data, assess the data, or collect the data, organize the data, assess the data, then answer the question. And suddenly, you are in charge. You're running the show. And it's an amazing thing, you see, because one of the things that affects us as a society is our ignorance. I hate to use that term. I was told today that's a very powerful term. But if you think about it, 300 million people populate the United States of America. It's the most technologically advanced people on the face of the earth. And yet collectively, we're about the most ignorant people on the earth about the world we live in. We don't understand this. And yet somehow we feel empowered that we have the inherent right, all 300 million of us, to dictate the terms of coexistence with 6.8 billion other people, as if there's only one person calling the shots. That's a mighty powerful position to be taken when we don't understand the world we live in. See, far from being the strong cowboy standing up there in the world going, I see all, I know all, and I'm going to do all, we're really a bunch of timid cowards. We're very big, timid cowards. But if you think about it, we run and hide from our own shadow because we don't understand it. We're ignorant about the world we live in. We allow a couple hundred Islamic fundamentalists to cow us into not only declaring war on the world, but declaring war on ourselves. From ignorance, what is ignorance? That which you don't know. And from ignorance comes fear. Fear of that which you do not know. And this fear allows you to be manipulated by the political powers that be. And they get to lead you down a path of their choosing, not your choosing. We have to empower ourselves with knowledge and information, ladies and gentlemen. We have to break free of this prison that we've allowed our government to impose on us in the name of security. Because if we don't, we cease to function as citizens of the nation that has the greatest potential than any other nation on the face of the earth to do good things. I love my country. I love America, and I think we're united in our love for America. Thank you very much. And now let's bring on Lizzie West and Baba Buffalo.